Just a little study tip when it comes to mnemonics. Be careful with using them. A lot of times we look at how can we memorize anatomy as fast as possible so we can earn an A on the test. My goal for you is to be able to learn some of this material, especially as we build the language throughout the semester. As we learn different pieces, it's important to carry on of how we understand the different systems, because it's no different than learning any other language that you may take a class for: French, Arabic, German, Spanish, whatever it may be. You have to build the language. We do the same thing with anatomy. So sometimes we're always looking, how can I memorize this as fast as possible? So people use a lot of mnemonics. But be careful with them, because sometimes I feel like it's a waste of your time. The best way to learn the material is to teach it to other people. That's how you grasp it faster. Sometimes you end up learning more than you need by using mnemonics that doesn't even make any sense for what you're studying. And this is examples of this. So I'm going to show a couple examples that I think are not useful and a couple that I do use. So I am hypocritical in the sense that I will use them, but when I think it applies and helps support the learning of the material. So let's take a look at this. There's cranial bones. Remember, we have 8 cranial bones. A couple of them have 2. So you're only learning 6 terms total: frontal, parietal, occipital, ethmoid, temporal, and sphenoid. 6. Okay, but then here's a mnemonic that I found. It says, funny people over entertainment, try songs. Funny people over entertainment, try songs. Nobody ever says that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the hell we're talking about here. How is this going to help you to remember these bones? Well, of course, it's asking you to use just the first letter of every word to remember it. But now you're remembering 2 things, and one that's not even associated with anatomy in any way to support learning cranial bones. So as you look at this, I'm learning this and then this. So I recommend that you just learn this. You only have 6 terms. Practice it, show it on the model, teach it to other people. 12 cranial nerves. There's a lot of mnemonics out there that support learning cranial nerves. This one is, in my opinion, awful. On occasion of parties, the attractive faces our girl visitors say hello. No one talks like that. That doesn't make any sense. This doesn't help you to understand our 12 cranial nerves. Again, it's using the first letter of every word to then correlate to olfactory, optic, ocular motor, trochlear, trigeminal, abductions, facial. So I've learned it by teaching it. I know it's easier for me because I've been teaching every semester for the last 23 years. But the best way to learn it is to teach it and then look at it as you're teaching it to somebody. There are mnemonics that can be helpful, but for the most part, when I find these, it's just learning something else. It's a waste of your time, because this is useful information to learn the stuff that actually applies for taking the exams and carrying it forward for your future science classes. Remember, I said I'm hypocritical. These ones on the right are ones that I actually use. So number of vertebrae. This, I think, is simple and applies. So I have 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, and 5 lumbar. I correlate that to the times that we eat. So I eat breakfast at 7 a.m. I eat lunch at 12. I eat dinner at 5. That's a pretty standard thing that you can remember, because most people do eat around those times, and it matches the bones. But if you go back to just 7, 12, and 5, pretty simple to learn as well. But it's a relatively simple thing to learn to correlate to your bones. And then lastly, when we cover epidermal layers, and when we look at integumentary system, and I look at epidermis and dermis, there's 5 layers on the hands and feet. Remember, 4 in other areas when we look at the layers of the epidermis. I use come, let's get sunburned, and it's referring to the first letter. I combine sunburn, but those letters correlate to the layers, but also it applies to the skin. So come, let's get sunburned not only makes sense, no one wants to get sunburned, but the actual sentence makes sense, and it applies to future learning for the skin, because we'll learn cells called melanocytes that produce a pigment melanin to absorb that UV radiation from the sun so it doesn't disrupt the DNA of the nucleus and cause things like cancer, so you don't have melanoma. So I look at this, it applies on what we're trying to learn. I know it's hypocritical, but to me, this is a simple one that matches what you're learning. So I just wanted to share that with you. try to teach the material to other people before learning something new that doesn't apply to the concept itself. Be careful with mnemonics.